Chapter 785 Interrogation 1. After Ju Ying left the palace, she went to 2 restaurants and told them about all the tofu recipes that she knew before returning to her residence. At the same time, the emperor still did not receive a reply from King An, so he ordered people to take the assassin into the imperial prison and planned to do the interrogation himself. When the assassin saw the emperor, he did not say a word. Instead, he spat out a mouthful of blood at him and said, "Don't waste your time. You have captured me. So be it." Not waiting for him to finish, the emperor kicked his balls. "You're a man, that's for sure. I just don't know how long you can be manly." He turned to eunuch Chen and said, "Go to find the eunuch responsible for cleansing a man's body for eunuchship." "Clean his body?" "Yes." Eunuch Chen looked at the assassin sympathetically, then hurriedly ran out of the imperial prison. The emperor took a few steps back and sat on the chair, starting to observe the assassin seriously. The assassin was frightened by his stare. He thought that the emperor was thinking about how to torture him. He sneered and said, "Forget about being cleansed. Even if you cut me into pieces, I won't even blink. Yeah, I hope you can still be arrogant during that." The emperor said this and mocked, "Look at you. You act so arrogantly. So why did you fall from the tree?" The assassin was furious. To be honest, he didn't know what happened back then, either. He was hiding well on the treetop, but somehow he was struck by a wave of dizziness and fell. Now that he thought about it, it was embarrassing for an assassin of his caliber. King An stepped forward at this moment and added, "Your Majesty, according to the doctor's diagnosis, he fainted from hunger and fell from the tree. Don't look at how big and burly he looks. He looks like a man, but has actually a weak little woman. Otherwise, he wouldn't have fallen after starving for a few meals." "What a coward." "Shut up. I didn't faint from hunger. I can even survive 7 days without food or water, let alone 3 days. Otherwise, how could I have the strength to pull the bow and shoot otherwise?" "You said you went without food for 3 days on that tree?" the emperor asked. "That's right. Besides, I brought water with me. How could I faint from hunger?" In other words, on the day the retired emperor passed away, you were already on the tree. "That's right. If I were late, you would have sent troops to clear the way. It won't be so easy to hide there then. It seems that you know the rules of the imperial family very well. You also participated in the plot against my father, right?" The assassin was stunned for a moment before realizing that he had misspoken. He snorted coldly and did not speak again. The emperor also discovers he's just arrogant and not shrewd. He tried to get information out of him. Unfortunately, although the assassin was not clever, he was not stupid. Just in case, he simply did not speak. The emperor was helpless when he saw this, but he was also confident that he definitely knew something about the retired emperor's assassination and even participated in it. Thinking of this, he gritted his teeth in hatred. At the same time, he knew that although they seemed to be targeting the retired emperor, their ultimate goal was him. He didn't expect to cause his empress to lose her life. Thinking of this, he wanted nothing more than to pull out this assassin's tendons and skin him alive. Soon, Eunuch Chen came in with Eunuch Hua. Eunuch Chen pointed at the assassin and said, "It's him. Remember to do it slowly, but don't hurt his life." "Eunuch Chen, don't worry. He will definitely make him suffer a lot of pain, but he will survive." Eunuch Hua looked at the assassin and replied. He later called a few prison guards to help him tie the assassin to a rack, and he took out a small knife that was emitting a glint. Chapter 786 Interrogation 2. He stepped forward and rubbed the assassin's face. Only with some oil can a blunt knife cut through flesh. "Now, enjoy yourself." After saying that, he reached out to untie the assassin's belt. "Are you for real?" The assassin panicked. "Nonsense. Do you think killing my family member will grant you an easy death?" The emperor added, after cutting it off, "Feed it to the dogs. I want him to be an eunuch for every reincarnation." "Yes." Eunuch Hua nodded, then looked at the assassin with a fierce expression. When the assassin heard that the emperor wanted him to be an eunuch even in his other lives, he remembered that eunuchs usually kept their body parts after cutting them off. However, his would be fed to the dogs. Could it be? Don't castrate me. the assassin hurriedly said just as Eunuch Hua was about to strike. "Mph, weren't you supposed to be tough? It just so happens that I've never seen someone get castrated before." The emperor looked at him with a cold smile. Although the assassin gritted his teeth angrily, he knew he was meat on the chopping board. He could be chopped up and fed to the dogs at any time. "If I tell you, will you leave me a complete corpse?" the assassin asked after a moment of hesitation. "A cup of poisoned wine." The emperor nodded. The assassin heaved a sigh of relief. "I'm a hidden chess piece left behind by King Hui when he left. 5 days ago, I received news that I had to hide at the city gate in advance to assassinate the emperor." "What was your previous identity?" "I was in the royal guards previously. When King Hui forced the abdication, he didn't make me participate, just in case." "Are there any other people from King Hui's side in the royal guards?" "I don't think so. I was kept here because of my archery skills." "Who sent you the message?" "I only know that she's a nanny in the palace. She has the smell of traditional medicine on her. I don't know the details." "What else do you know?" "I'm in one-way contact." "I really don't know." The assassin paused for a moment before adding, "By the way, there seems to be a burn scar on the back of her neck. It's either a red birthmark or something. It was too dark then, so I couldn't be sure. I do know about this nanny. She was previously a subordinate of Consort Shu. I don't know what she did later, but Consort Shu burned half her back in a cup of tea. Later, the empress saved her and invited a doctor for her." Eunuch Hua said. "Chen." The emperor looked at Eunuch Chen. Eunuch Chen immediately understood and brought his men over. The nanny was quickly caught, and her mouth was stuffed with a rag. Eunuch Chen stepped forward and said, "The emperor, we caught her. She wanted to bite her tongue and commit suicide. Fortunately, the guards found her in time. Another one who isn't afraid of death. No wonder you people could hide so deeply." After the emperor finished speaking, he kicked the nanny to the front of the assassin and said, "Admit it, is it her?" "It's her, it's her. That's what's on her neck." The assassin nodded repeatedly. As soon as he finished speaking, he received the nanny's death stare. The assassin's heart skipped a beat. However, he straightened his neck and said, "What are you looking at? King Hui isn't here. Even if I say something, it won't implicate him." The nanny stared at him even more terrifyingly. Seeing this, King waved his hand and got someone to give the nanny some anesthetic. He said, "He's right. King Hui is not here. Just say whatever you have to say. We won't make things difficult for you. Otherwise, well, it would be hard to say what would happen to you then." Chapter 787 Interrogation 3. The emperor looked at the nanny's cold, sharp eyes and knew she would not speak easily. He turned to look at Eunuch Chen and said, "Seal the palace gates and investigate the palace servants who have come into contact with her. Capture all of them. Especially those who live in the same house and courtyard as her." "Yes." Eunuch Chen responded and walked out. The emperor also informed Xiao Heng. Although he intended to force people to jump over the wall in desperation, he didn't want the palace to be in chaos. After the nanny heard this, she turned her head and looked at the emperor with hatred. "I don't like this pair of eyes. Dig them out and feed them to the dogs." The emperor sneered. "This one will do so." After Eunuch Hua finished speaking, he walked into the nanny with a sinister smile. He took out a knife and directly dug out her eyes with a technique that was fast, ruthless, and accurate. No matter how calm she was earlier, she screamed in pain. Her voice screeched louder than that of a vengeful ghost. Hearing this, the assassin's hair stood on end. At the same time, he was glad that he did not hold on earlier. Otherwise, the scream would have come out of his mouth. After her eyes were dug out, Eunuch Hua quickly applied a layer of medicine to her eyes and sprinkled a large amount of lime powder. This was so that it could quickly disinfect and sear the wound, thus quickly stopping the bleeding and any possible infection. "You dog of an emperor," the empress was right. "You are the most ruthless person in this world," the nanny shouted at this moment. However, due to the anesthetic, her shouts were feeble. The emperor dug his ears and said, "You are stupid. In this world, Who can be more ruthless than the ex-empress and her son? Ignoring the ministers who had died in their hands and the innocent children of the ministers' families. What about the commoners? The most typical example was when King Hui went to the south to build the river embankment. In order to force the local officials to collude with him, he cruelly killed all the strong laborers. Can you imagine the scene of blood flowing like a river and corpses strewn all over the ground? Relatively speaking, I only dug out your eyes. Do you think you're innocent? Do you dare say that the retired emperor and my empress deaths had nothing to do with you? No. You deserve to die. But don't worry, I won't let you die. I will let you witness your accomplices die tragically in front of you, one by one. I will let them know that they died because of you. I want you to feel pain all the time and not be able to sleep at night. As long as you dare commit suicide, I will kill your 9 clans for treason, including everyone in 5 lines of relation. I will make you a sinner of your clan, and you won't be able to live in peace even if you go to hell. The old nanny listened to his words as if the emperor were a malicious ghost locking on to her. She was terrified. Her fate would be doomed if there were ghosts in this world. No, there are no ghosts in this world. Don't lie to yourself. Even the neighboring countries know about Mother God's manifestation. How long do you want to lie to yourself? Nanny son, save Meow Meow. At this moment, a little girl in her teens was brought in. When she saw the nanny, she immediately cried and shouted. Nanny son was stunned for a moment and turned her head to look. However, she couldn't see anything anymore. She stretched out her hand and wanted to follow the sound. Unfortunately, just as she stretched out her hand, Kingen stepped on it. Stay here obediently. Chapter 788 Interrogation 4. You're not human. She's still a child. Nanny Sun raised her head and shrieked. All the palace servants are servants who have signed a death contract. Their lives are in the hands of the emperor. If you were honest and served your master as you should, who would find trouble with you? Consort Shu and the late empress have already taught you this once. Unfortunately, you don't have a good memory, so who can you blame? Besides, isn't she implicated by you? Otherwise, why would she appear here? Kingen sneered. How could a disobedient dog still expect its owner to be honest with it? Nanny Sun, save me. When the little palace maid heard this, she immediately shouted at Nanny Sun again. Seeing this, Nanny Sun turned her head and did not look at her anymore. Did you see that? Eunuch Chen said. Nanny Sun could have saved you, but she chose not to. Impossible. Nanny Sun, save me. The little palace maid cried out. At this moment, Kingen shouted impatiently, shut up. She would have done so if she wanted to save you the moment you came in. There's no need to keep shouting. The little palace maid was so frightened that she immediately shut her mouth and trembled as she hid beside Eunuch Chen. When Eunuch Chen saw this, he rubbed her little head lovingly. Don't be afraid. As long as you are obedient and tell us what you know, the emperor will not make things difficult for you. Go. After Eunuch Chen finished speaking, he pushed her into Nanny Sun's arms. Nanny Sun was already in so much pain that her entire body was trembling. The pain from her collision almost made her faint, and she subconsciously pushed the maid back out. After the little palace maid was pushed away, she turned her head and looked at her with an aggrieved expression. Only then did he realize something was wrong with Nanny Sun's eyes and immediately crawl over. When she saw that her eyes were gone, she asked in panic, Nanny Sun, your eyes. Your eyes. At this moment, the little palace maid also realized something. She was so frightened that her entire body trembled. Her eyes were filled with fear as she looked at the emperor. Little girl, the assassin said. I'm afraid it's useless. If you don't want to suffer like us, just tell them what you know. The little palace maid turned her head to look after hearing that. Only then did she realize that a bloody person was hanging on a rack. She immediately became even more afraid. Seeing this, Kingen looked at the assassin with satisfaction. He said to the little palace maid, as long as you tell me who Nanny Sun usually interacted with and who she had a good relationship with in private, I will let you go. Otherwise, you will end up like him. Kingen pointed at the assassin. The little palace maid immediately started crying. You only have 15 minutes. The emperor said. The little palace maid didn't know what to do and could only look at Nanny Sunday. Seeing her shake her head, she lowered her head and shut her mouth. Seeing this, Eunuch Hua stepped forward and brandished his knife. Little girl, you're quite stubborn. Why don't you accompany Nanny Sun? No, don't. The little palace maid was so frightened that she immediately shrank back. Nanny Sun hugged her and spoke up, if you have anything, come at me. Don't ask her. She doesn't know anything. But she's keeping quiet. Moreover, I heard you even intend to acknowledge her as your goddaughter. How could she not know anything? Eunuch Chen asked. You guys, Nanny Sun didn't know what to say. The little palace maid was so frightened that she dared not speak again. However, she was pulled over by Eunuch Hua. Your eyes are so beautiful, and I very much like them. Why don't I dig them out and soak them in water to take a good look? After saying that, he raised the knife and stabbed it into her eyes with a sinister smile. Chapter 789. Cowpox. Eunuch Chen even stepped forward and held her down, leaving her no room to run. Nanny Sun wanted to help, but she was kicked to the wall by King and Don't. Wait. I know that Nanny Sun has a name list. The little palace maid was so frightened that she closed her eyes and shouted. Name list? Where? King An asked. Meow meow. Nanny Sun immediately shouted. However, fear had already taken over the little palace maid's heart, so she told King An where the name list was stored. Eunuch Chen immediately ran out. After he left, he caught a few more people, one after another. However, he did not interrogate them. Instead, he locked them up in the cell. At the same time, to prevent Nanny Sun from committing suicide, King An also hung her up. Nanny Sun's eyes were already in so much pain that she almost fainted a few times after she was hung up. However, she could not faint because of the pain. She also did not dare to make any more moves. About 2 hours later, Eunuch Chen captured another 8 people, but this time, they were mainly eunuchs. 24 people in total. We've captured all of them. Good. The emperor took the list and glanced at it. Not only were their names there, but also their position, age, and speciality. Their positions weren't eye-catching. It seemed that it was specially arranged. At the same time, he felt a lingering fear in his heart. There were so many people. If they were discovered too late, many more incidents might have happened. He handed the name list to King An. With the name list, the assassin, and Nanny Sun's tragic state, it was much easier for the others to speak. Soon, he discovered that the person who had thrown ice into the retired emperor's room was a little eunuch skilled at sneaking around. Ultimately, Nanny Sun had nothing else to shoulder and gave out consort Shu's 3 spies. Of course, the emperor was happy to arrest them all. They later found out about 10 more people under consort Shu. From then on, all the spies of King Hui and King Kang were removed. With a wave of his hand, the emperor gave them all poisoned wine and buried them in the wilderness. Ju Ying, who had been paying attention to the palace, finally heaved a sigh of relief. At least Jiyu Warning was now in a safer position. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Jiyu Chungrue finally returned and handed the final vaccine data to the emperor. Replying to the emperor, I did not disappoint you. The experiment this time has been successful. The experiment has proved that the human body more readily accepts a vaccine. Guard Chu and the others had already tried it, and they recovered in about 3 days. After that, we found some weak children and women. The recovery was slower, but it would only take 7 days at most. Did you really get smallpox and recover? The emperor looked at Guard Chu. Yes. Guard Chu replied. He then stepped forward and unbuttoned his shirt. He pulled it gently, revealing a small scar on his shoulder. The only problem is that it will leave a scar. It's worth having such a small scar to eliminate the possibility of smallpox infection. The emperor laughed loudly. This was the only happy thing that had happened in the past month. It was great news. He looked at Jiyu Chungrue and asked, "Can't the eldest princess get her vaccine now? Let's wait a little longer. It won't be too late to take it when she can run all over the place and her body is stronger." It'll save her from suffering. Did you bring it? Give the vaccine to me now. The emperor put down the memorial. Emperor, you can't. You have a body of gold, you must be careful. It's better to let this servant do it. This way, you can also witness the effectiveness with your eyes. Eunuch Qian immediately kneeled and stopped the emperor. Chapter 790. A reminder. Emperor, why don't you let Eunuch Qian try it out first? Jiyu Chongrui hesitated for a moment and suggested. Although he was confident in the cowpox vaccine, just in case, he still felt he should get it after he thoroughly approved it. Moreover, although the country seemed calm now, the undercurrents were surging, so it was better to be careful. Emperor, let Eunuch Qian go first. Guard Chu echoed. How about this, Chongrui? You go back and rest well. Tomorrow, I will select a group of people for the vaccine. At the same time, let the people from the Imperial Academy of Medicine follow and observe. Let's see if there's any difference. All right. I will take my leave first. After Jiyu Chongrui finished speaking, he looked at Guard Chu and said, I'll have to trouble Guard Chu to protect that cow. Don't worry, Lord Jiyu. Guard Chu smiled. Jiyu Chongrui nodded and turned to leave the palace. When he returned home, he found out that Ju Ying and their daughter had gone to the manor. Although he was a little disappointed, he quickly washed up, changed, ate something, and had a good sleep. He did not expect that the next day after entering the palace, the emperor had all the palace servants between the ages of 10 and 40 ready for the cowpox vaccine. After planting the cowpox, the rest were handed over to Principal Ju and the others. Other than going to the palace once a day, he would go to his hospital and get busy. 3 days later, the vaccinated subjects gradually recovered. By the 7th day, everyone had completely recovered. The emperor was overjoyed, and so were the imperial physicians. Although they weren't the ones who discovered the vaccine, at least they wouldn't have to be afraid of smallpox anymore. It could be considered a way of saving their lives. On that day, everyone in the palace who was over 2 years old and below 60 years old, except for Jiyu Wanning, who was pregnant, got their vaccine. 10 days later, after everyone had recovered, the emperor went to the previous Empress Dowager. He looked at the eldest princess and then at the previous Empress Dowager. Imperial Grandmother, Jiyu Chengrui's contribution this time is too great. In addition to the sweet potatoes and water wheel, how do you think your grandson should be rewarded? I can't say for sure. However, between the husband and wife, one only thinks about doing business and cooking all day, while the other only thinks about farming and medicine all day. In addition to your Aunt Ping Yang's relationship, why don't you give him an official position that won't be easily bullied? As for the rest, it's up to you. An official who doesn't allow others to bully him? The emperor couldn't think of anything for the moment. After all, there weren't many officials in that high position. I'll seriously consider it when I return, he said. After the emperor finished speaking, he stood up and was about to leave. The previous Empress Dowager quickly stopped him. Wait a minute. What do you think about your back palace? After the empress passed, only Wanning is left. The courtiers would send a memorial for you to choose someone sooner or later. Also, there's also your father's concubines. It's not a good thing to keep them here. It'll be troublesome if the public makes some unpleasant remarks. Did you hear something? The emperor asked. No, but don't forget that some of your father's concubines are still quite young. Some of them are even virgins. It's inevitable that ambitious people will target you. It can't be. If there weren't such signs, would I have asked? The emperor felt disgusted after hearing this. He then asked, Imperial Grandmother, what do you think about letting these concubines who don't have sons out of the palace? Especially those who are virgins. I assent that kind of you. I'm just afraid that they won't appreciate your kindness. The previous Empress Dowager paused for a moment. How about this? I'll arrange for people to gauge their and their families' reactions. If they can accept it, then let them out. Chapter 791. Taking action. Thank you, Grandmother. After the emperor thanked her, he instructed the little princess to be a good girl and went to work. The moment he left, The previous Empress Dowager first sent Nanny Liu to count all the beautiful women who had never slept with the previous emperor. She sent someone to call Consort Xian and her daughter-in-law, King An's family, and the 3 generations of the old woman into the palace. I called you all here today to ask for your help. Mother, if you need anything, just tell me. Consort Xian said. Yes. If there's anything you need, please instruct us. Elder Consort An echoed. I will say it directly. You should also know that a group of women in the palace have served the previous emperor. Some of them are even virgins who have never slept with him. Letting them accompany him for the rest of their lives is too cruel. The current emperor is kind and wants to let them go out and get married, so he wants to invite you to their parents' homes to investigate their willingness. If they are willing to accept this arrangement, we will let them out of the palace. We won't force those who aren't willing. However, the girls won't be qualified to be selected again if they go home. What will happen to those who are unwilling to accept it? The old consort asked. If they didn't accept it and would end up very miserable, it was believed that not many would give up for their family's reputation. Many young men in the army still have yet to get married. The emperor will assign them to them when the time comes. The Empress Dowager replied. The old consort and the others looked at each other and had an idea. After a while, Nanny Liu returned with a detailed list of names. She handed it to the previous Empress Dowager. Madam, this is the list of the women who have never slept with the previous emperor. After the previous Empress Dowager took it, she glanced at it. She didn't expect there to be quite a lot. The younger one entered the palace during the last selection and was only 22 years old. The older one was nearly 40 years old. Her damned son was really guilty. She was too careless. Those who were over 25 should have been released like palace maids. She selected those who had family members in the capital and assigned them to 5 people. After they left, she handed out the list of people with no family in the capital. She gave it to Nanny Liu. Send these letters to their families and ask for their opinions. Yes. Granny Liu paused and asked, Madam, the 2 oldest ones want to stay in the palace. They used to work in the embroidery room when they had nothing to do. They said they wanted to become embroiderers. The previous Empress Dowager nodded thoughtfully and said, check them out first if these 2 people are safe. If they are, they can stay. Otherwise, they can't stay in the palace. No matter what, the late emperor wasted their youth. It would be dangerous for the current emperor if they were to harbor resentment in their hearts. Yes. Nanny Liu responded and left with the name list. After the emperor returned to the royal study, he thought about it and could not decide on what official he should give Jiyu Chungrui. Luckily, this matter was not urgent. What was urgent was to spread the vaccine as soon as possible. At the thought of this, he summoned the imperial physicians, including Jiyu Chungrui, into the palace and asked, everyone, tell me, how can we quickly and effectively promote the spread of vaccines? I think we can send 2 more imperial physicians out to supervise the local doctors' cooperation. Imperial physician Liu replied. It will be a little slow. We can send more doctors from the capital and teach them how to get the vaccine from cowpox. Everyone will head out to different places together, and it will be promoted faster. Principal Ju stepped forward and suggested. Following that, the other imperial physicians also came forward to express their thoughts, but they were all similar and had no new ideas. The key was to control the doctors among the people and not spread the fear of cowpox. Chapter 792a Method. The emperor finally looked at Jiyu Chungrui, standing at the side, pretending to be stupid. He asked in a bad mood, Jiyu Chungrui, tell me what you think. Emperor, if you want to push out the vaccine as soon as possible, the methods of the imperial physicians are not bad. But in the long run, it's still lacking. Oh, tell me. The emperor nodded. He also felt something was wrong but couldn't figure out what. Although the few imperial physicians were indignant, they did not refute him because he discovered the vaccine. However, they still turned to look at him, wanting to see what good ideas he could come up with. Humans are always giving birth endlessly. This year, we can promote the spread of cowpox as a smallpox vaccine. What would happen to the children growing up next year? Should we do this once a year? Therefore, I suggest that a medical center belonging to the imperial court be established in each county or even town. In addition to the annual vaccine inoculations for children of the right age, the prevention methods for other diseases could also be quickly implemented through this governmental medical center. For example, leprosy is one illness we must get rid of quickly. Also, we could earn an income by visiting patients. This way, not only would the staff not need to be paid monthly, but it would also increase the income of the imperial court. Also, the medical skills of doctors varied everywhere, and this medical center could restrict them through examinations. Only those who met the requirements could become doctors. The rest will be firmly banned from practicing medicine. The last and most important point is that the quality of the country's medicinal herbs is worrying. There are even those who sell fake medicine. We can also supervise them through this medical center. A medical center. The emperor felt it was a little over, but he had to admit that this was a good idea for long-term development. After the imperial physicians heard this, they looked at each other. For a moment, they did not know if it was a good or bad idea. Wouldn't this crowd the other medicine stores? Wouldn't it cause chaos? Asked Principal Jew. It's just one more. It won't affect anyone as long as we don't have bad intentions. Besides, don't we have to choose the person in charge from the top local doctors? This way, there will be one or two fewer local clinics. Principal Jew didn't say anything after hearing this. When the emperor saw this, he looked at Jiyu Chungrui and said, "How about this, Minister Jiyu? Write me a detailed memorial later. Let's discuss it properly. As for this year's vaccine promotion, it would be done according to Principal Jew's plan. Select a group of doctors in the capital and transfer some apprentices from the Imperial Academy of Medicine to learn how to use cowpox to treat smallpox. After they finish learning, I will send soldiers to escort them to various places to spread the vaccine quickly." The emperor then looked at Principal Jew. Principal Jew will be in charge of the selection of these doctors. Remember, their character must pass the test. If anything happens, I will come to you for questioning. As for teaching them, let Jiyu Chungrui do it. Yes. The two of them replied at the same time. Does Lord Jiyu have a way to prevent leprosy? Principal Jew asked after leaving the royal study. Not yet, but since the smallpox vaccine is successful, I think there are other ways we can try it. Jiyu Chungrui said. That's true. You youngsters are the most aggressive in research. Principal Jew nodded thoughtfully. It seemed that the Imperial Academy of Medicine could also try it. They could no longer limit themselves to treating the people in the palace. Jiyu Chungrui said a few polite words and left. When he returned home, he saw Guogua, who was already able to walk with Ju Ying's guidance. He went forward and smiled. Guogua, you're so awesome. Come to Daddy. After saying that, he leaned over and clapped his hands at her. When Guogua saw him, she also smiled and clapped her hands. Then, she walked over to him with a serious expression on her face. When she was almost there, she suddenly smiled and threw herself into his arms. Chapter 793 Autumn Harvest. Jiyu Chungrui immediately squatted down to support her. He picked her up and kissed her on the cheek. Guogua is the best. Guogua immediately laughed when she heard the compliment. Are you not busy today? Ju Ying stood up and asked. Why are you back so early? After asking that, she poured him a glass of water. Jiyu Chungrui sat down and said, I was summoned into the palace by the emperor and discussed the matter of promoting the uses of cowpox. For the sake of long-term planning, I suggested a centralized medical center, an overall medical system led by the government. I'm afraid we'll be busy from now on. That's good too. Doing more good deeds can be considered as accumulating merit for our children and grandchildren. Although Ju Ying was a little reluctant to part with him, she had no intention of stopping him. She asked, Guoguo's first birthday is coming up. What should we do? Do we hold another banquet? Yes, but just a small one. We can't mistreat our daughter. Jiyu Chungrui replied. Then, he remembered Principal Ju's attitude and told her, He's not a bad person. He's just like power a little too much. If he takes the initiative to look for you, Just treat him as someone ordinary and keep a distance away. I understand. So, what do you want to eat for lunch? I don't have much of an appetite. Just make something appetizing. Sure, let's have cold noodles and 2 refreshing side dishes. Alright, prepare more chili oil. Ju Ying nodded and turned to leave. Jiyu Chungrui played with Guogua for a while, then passed her to Mrs. Lin while he went to the study room. 3 days later, they held a small-scale banquet for Guogua, and the couple got busy. Jiyu Chungrui was busy with his hospital and discussing farming with Chen He. He did not expect that Chen He actually managed to grow watermelon on the eastern melon vine. Although it was big, the taste was not that great. Jiyu Chungrui looked at his disappointed expression. He patted his shoulder and smiled. It's already great that you succeeded. If you persist, you will definitely gain something special. Next year, let's try transplanting jujube with wild jujube, as our jujube production is still a little low. Are you sure that the transplanting of the jujube will succeed? Of course, they belong to the same type of plant. Have you forgotten that we successfully transplanted apples and pears this spring? They are of different species. Alright, I'll start on jujube next year. Yes, but your forceful and hard-headed method won't work. You have to find a direction and study it in depth. Otherwise, you might be able to do everything in the future, but you might not be good at it. For example, doctors are divided into many subcategories, such as gynecology, surgery, acupuncture, and so on. I understand what you mean. I will seriously consider it when I go back. Meanwhile, Ju Ying brought Guogua to the manor and started harvesting the fruits. Besides the pears that were managed by the head of the manor, the apples and grapes in the wasteland manor had also ripened. Niu Fugue was mainly responsible for selling the fruits, while Ju Ying taught everyone how to brew wine. There was an autumn harvest later for rice, soybeans, sesame, peanuts, and so on. Although she didn't need to go down to the fields herself, she still needed to make the decision. After that, they harvested the corn and planted the winter wheat. She had planted a lot of winter wheat this time and planned for corn next. This way, she could store some food outside her interspace, just in case. At the same time, she also took out some soybeans, peanuts, sesame seeds, and other urgently needed food from her space. The restaurants had run out of sesame today, causing the hot pot business of the 3 restaurants to stop. This busy period lasted for more than a month. Chapter 794 Promotion. During this month, there were major changes in the palace. Among the previous emperor's concubines, regardless of whether they had given birth to princesses or princes, they had left the palace together. Those who were virgins, except for the 2 older ones, had all left the palace to get married. Some of the women who had served the previous emperor also remarried. However, most chose to go to the imperial mausoleum to mourn for the previous emperor, and 2 decided to go to the Mother God Temple to serve her. On this day, after Jiyu Chungrui had taught all the selected doctors how to get the vaccine from cowpox, the emperor also put plans for medical centers on the agenda. Therefore, he directly summoned Jiyu Chungrui into the palace and asked, regarding the medical center's memorial, whether it's their position, responsibility, or authority, you have to write it down clearly. That's why I called you over today, for you to manage these medical centers. At the same time, I will confer on you the title of Marquis and Le tomorrow. At the same time, I will appoint you as a second-grade official in charge of the medical yamen. Also, Ju Ying will be conferred the title of a second-grade imperial consort. Jiyu Chungrui did not decline after hearing that. He was the one who had proposed the medical center, so only with him in charge could they strictly follow his request. However, he still asked worriedly, so, the imperial physicians are imperial physicians. Their duty is to treat the people of the royal family. They don't have power in the government. Of course, if they want to enter a medical center, I will also approve it. I understand. Tell me how you plan to choose your candidates first. It's not easy to handpick so many people. Just like the imperial examination, passing the examination is divided into 2 parts, theory and on-the-spot diagnosis. However, after the theory examination, We have to investigate the person's life and character. If their character is not good, they will not be recruited. Otherwise, it will ruin the big picture. The emperor nodded in agreement. Then it's settled. I'll get Xiao Heng to bring someone for you later. If there's anything that you need, just mention it. Yes. Jiyu Chengrue had just finished speaking when eunuch Qian rushed over. Your Majesty, Lord Jiyu, Consort Xian is ready to give birth. The previous Empress Dowager and the imperial physician are already on their way. Let's go. The emperor suddenly stood up and strode out. He had heard imperial physician Liu say that Consort Xian's baby was a boy, which would be his eldest son. He was looking forward to it and could not allow anything to happen to the mother and son. Jiyu Chengrue saw this and immediately got up to follow. The previous Empress Dowager heaved a sigh of relief when she saw them. She stood up and said, "You're finally here. I can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Thank you for your hard work, Imperial Grandmother. Please sit at the side and wait. I will guard her." After the emperor finished speaking, he helped her sit down. The other people in the courtyard immediately bowed to the emperor. "Greetings, Grand Empress Dowager." Jiyu Chengrue stepped forward and bowed after everyone got up. "No need. Sit. Let's wait together. I hope the Mother Goddess can bless Wanning to give birth smoothly." "Don't worry." Jiyu Chengrue responded and sat down below the emperor. Hearing the heart-wrenching screams in the room, Jiyu Chengrue's scalp went numb. He was worried about this, so when Chuanxi came out, he asked her to pass on a message. If Jiyu Wanning shouted too much now, she would lose her energy easily when giving birth later. He told her that she must try her best to endure it. Finally, he instructed, it's best to find her something clean and let her bite on it. Yes, there is such a saying. Chunxi, right? Hurry up and go in and tell your mistress. The previous Empress Dowager nodded in agreement. Chunxi immediately turned around and ran back into the house. Chapter 795 Birth of the First Prince. The Emperor heard this and gripped the handle of the chair. He turned to Imperial Physician Liu and asked, Imperial Physician Liu, have you prepared the ginseng? Replying to the Emperor, it's prepared. 100-year-old ginseng. Imperial Physician Liu answered. The Emperor nodded and didn't speak again, and he just stared at the door. Jiyu Chengrue looked at his nervous expression and finally heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. It did not matter if he was doing it for the child or for Wanning, as long as the child was successfully born. Wanning's position was temporarily stabilized. Otherwise, Wanning might not be able to win against the newcomers with her personality. On the other end, Zhu Ying, who was paying attention to Jiyu Wanning from time to time, stopped checking the accounts in her hands and then paid attention to the birth. First, she confirmed if her fetal position was correct or not. After checking the 4 midwives and confirming that they did not have any secret items on them, she heaved a sigh of relief. She monitored the 4 midwives to prevent them from doing anything suspicious. Fortunately, she was overthinking it. At noon, Jiyu Wanning successfully gave birth to a little boy who weighed 1.5 kilograms. That loud cry really startled the midwife. At the same time, when the previous Empress Dowager and the Emperor found out that Consort Xian had really given birth to a little prince, they were overjoyed. The Emperor waved his hand and said, Little Qian, reward everyone in the palace with a month's salary. Congratulations to the Emperor, congratulations to the Emperor for having a son. Eunuch Qian immediately bowed. When the others heard this, they immediately congratulated him. Once the news spread, the palace was filled with jubilation. When Jiyu Wanning found out that she had given birth to a prince, she smiled and looked at the child before falling asleep. At this moment, Zhu Ying realized that Jiyu Wanning's head was really blessed with good fortune. There was even a faint purple aura. It seemed that there would be a joyous event in the future. When Jiyu Chengrue returned, he saw Zhu Ying coaxing Guogua to sleep while grinning. He went forward and asked, What's the good news? Why did you come back late? Zhu Ying asked back playfully. Jiyu Chengrue was surprised by her question for a moment. Hold on. I'm sure you know more details than I do. Of course. Ever since the previous Empress incident, I've been keeping an eye on the palace from time to time. After I found out that Jiyu Wanning was about to give birth, I watched her the entire time. Do you think the Emperor will make Wanning the Empress? Zhu Ying whispered to him about Jiyu Wanning's good fortune. Chapter 796 Sending Gifts. Banana is fine, as it can still be found in the capital. As for durian, I have yet to see even one here. We should forget about it. Alright, do as you see fit. The next morning, Zhu Ying and her husband had just finished breakfast when the imperial edict to confer Jiyu Chungrui the title of Marquis of Enrich and Zhu Ying the title of second-rank imperial consort arrived. After the two of them politely sent eunuch Chen away, Jiyu Chungrui went to his hospital to get busy. Meanwhile, Zhu Ying packed some red dates, wolfberries, and a bird's nest. They were all produced from her interspace and were all top-grade harvests. She also prepared a fruit basket. There were bananas for Jiyu Wanning, while the apples and grapes were for the previous Empress Dowager. After her preparations, she handed Guogua to Mrs. Lin and brought Shizhu into the palace. She visited Jiyu Wanning but noticed that she was still recovering. After putting down her gifts, she looked at the eldest prince and went to the previous Empress Dowager. Ah, Ying, you're here. You haven't come to see me in a while. When the previous Empress Dowager saw her enter, she immediately greeted her warmly. My bad. So, I came here today to apologize. Zhu Ying put down the 2 baskets of fruits. Here are some fruits. Do have a taste. Lovely. Your grapes are very sweet. I love to eat them, as does the eldest princess. It's just that we can't store them well. I didn't expect you to have some still. If I had known earlier, I would have asked for more for you. I made a cold storage with ice and stored some for myself. Since you like it, I'll send some over later. Cold storage? Is it an ice cellar? The previous Empress Dowager asked curiously. It's similar. You just need to put a layer of ice on the bottom or the top, and then put some lime on the other layer to disinfect it and remove the dampness. Lastly, you need to put some straw on it to keep the cold in. I see. The food won't be frozen by this either. Yes, but the time it can be preserved is limited. This is already a great deal. Granny. The eldest princess ran over and looked at the grapes. You greedy little cat. You and your sharp eyes. The previous Empress Dowager smiled. She then handed 2 large bunches of grapes to Nanny Liu. Wash them and give everyone a taste. Yes. Nanny Liu responded and walked out with the grapes. The eldest princess stayed behind and leaned into the previous Empress Dowager's arms. She looked at Zhu Ying curiously. Zhu Ying smiled. She took a pair of pink pearls from her purse, or rather, from her interspace. She handed it to her and said, Eldest princess, take a look. Do you like it? The eldest princess turned her head to look at the previous Empress Dowager. Seeing that she did not object, she reached out her tiny hand and grabbed it. She smiled. Thank you, Auntie. You're so obedient. Zhu Ying smiled and praised her. Oh, why didn't you bring Guogua? The eldest princess would have a playmate of the same age then. She just learned how to walk. How would I dare to bring her here? We'll have to wait until next year. Zhu Ying replied. That's right. Wanning has given birth now. Come to the palace more often in the future. Definitely. After that, the two chatted for a while before Zhu Ying left. 3 days later, she sent some more grapes again. This time, she also gave the eldest princess a set of building blocks and taught her how to play them. On the northern continent, in a tribe not far from the capital, King Hui looked at the person kneeling on the ground and asked in disbelief, "What did you say? Say it again." The second master, as well as all the spies in the palace, are dead. The smallpox disease was also quickly controlled. Only 12 people died, and the palace was not affected. After the person on the ground finished speaking, he lowered his head and did not dare to speak again. Chapter 797 Bringing along what happened. Have you made yourself clear? King Hui asked thoughtfully. He had designed so many traps, but he did not expect that he would still be unable to take his third brother's life. Instead, he had lost all his chess pieces. Something must have happened that he did not know about. Jiyu Chungrue was the one who discovered the smallpox. Because he discovered it in time and controlled it quickly and accurately, it was eliminated before it spread. It was also when he was investigating the root cause of smallpox that he found Second Master and the others, so, later on, he discovered cowpox. I heard it could prevent smallpox, and now he has begun implementing it. As for the people in the palace, after the Empress died, they caught the assassins, and everyone else was caught subsequently. Even King Kang's spies have been taken care of. Upon hearing what he said, King Hui immediately understood that the assassin and Nanny's son must have betrayed him. Otherwise, they wouldn't have all died and even implicated his fourth brother's people. He knew Nanny's son wasn't worth trusting. If she could betray them once, she could betray them a second time. However, his mother refused to listen. Now, she had become deaf and blind. He was in the dark now and could only attack forcefully. If they attacked forcefully, the battle would drag out, and they would suffer significant losses. The key was that he did not have military power in his hands, so he had to cooperate with the northern continent. However, the people of the northern continent were a group of wolves. The price of cooperating with them was too high. He asked, by the way, have the people sent into the northern continent palace and the borders sneaked in? They have. And the people who infiltrated the border also discovered other spies used to infiltrate the Northern Continent army. They have already taken them for their own use. Very good. You can go and rest. I'll look for you after I figure out what to do next. After King Prince finished speaking, he turned around and returned to the tent. On the other hand, after Jiyu Chungrue took over the medical center plan, he first brought all the doctors he taught and gave the smallpox vaccine to everyone in the capital. After everything was settled in the capital, the doctors were sent to various places under Xiao Heng's escort. At the same time, Xiao Heng also accepted a secret mission, which was to help Jiyu Chungrue inquire about the reputation and prestige of the local doctors. After they left, Jiyu Chungrue immediately began an examination to select doctors for the medical centers of the various suburban counties within the capital. After the capital was settled, they started to set up various medical centers along the route that Xiao Heng had set out on. On the other hand, Zhu Ying would bring Guoguo to Mingyu to play or teach Chuanxiang and Dongxiang cooking in the residence. In the blink of an eye, it was the first prince's 1-month-old birthday. Zhu Ying got up early in the morning and dressed herself up carefully. Then, she brought Jiyu Chenglin to the palace. As soon as she left, she met Mr. Jiyu, second uncle Jiyu, and Mrs. Yarrow walking over. First uncle, second uncle, when did you come to the capital? Jiyu Chenglin asked happily. We arrived yesterday as we heard about the first prince. We want to send some things over, so help us bring them in. Mr. Jiyu replied. Come in and have a seat. Zhu Ying greeted them and brought them to the living room. After they had tea served, Zhu Ying saw their big bags and asked, Father, what did you bring? We can't bring it in if it's too much. It's not much. It's just a gold lock for the prince and princess, 2 sets of children's clothes, and 2 tonics. The remaining bag is for Guoguo. There are clothes and toys from all over the world. Mr. Jiyu said. Yes, we know the rules when entering the palace. These gifts definitely didn't go through anyone's hands. It was all prepared by us. After second uncle Jiyu finished speaking, he opened the bag for her to look at. Chapter 798. Entering the palace. Although Zhu Ying understood their feelings, she felt that there were too many things. She looked at Jiyu Chenglin. After all, his status is much higher than hers now. Although Jiyu Chenglin also felt that it was too much, he still took it all when he saw how confident they were. I'll thank you all on behalf of my sister. We're family, Mr. Jiyu said. Second aunt, do you want to come with us to the palace to see Wanning and the child? Zhu Ying asked. Mrs. Yarrow was delighted at first, but then she shook her head and said, forget it. The rules in the palace are very strict. Moreover, we don't have any status now, so we won't go in. Yeah, just help us bring the things in, second uncle Jiyu said. Alright, you guys stay in the residence first. We'll talk later. Ju Ying stood up after that. After saying that, she called Nyo Fugue over and arranged a place for them to rest. Alright, then we'll go see Guogua first. You guys should go into the palace early, Mr. Jiyu said. After saying that, he picked up the big bag he had prepared for Guogua. Alright. Ju Ying stood up and took the small bundle from her second uncle's hand. We'll talk when we get back. After saying that, she rushed to the palace with Jiyu Chenglin. Of course, Jiyu Chenglin rode a horse while Ju Ying rode a carriage. After entering the carriage, Ju Ying carefully checked the items they brought. She only heaved a sigh of relief after confirming that there were no problems with them. Otherwise, she would be the one being suspected. She spread out his divine sense to look inside the residence. Guogua had seen Mrs. Yarrow recently, so she didn't shy away from strangers. Instead, she played with them. However, after a while, Guogua became impatient, and Mr. Jiyu and the others went to the guest room to rest. After entering the palace, Ju Ying and Jiyu Chenglin originally wanted to visit the previous Empress Dowager. When they found out that she was with Jiyu Waning, they immediately brought their gifts over. First, they greeted the previous Empress Dowager, only then did Ju Ying and Jiyu Chenglin enter the main courtyard. When they entered the room, they saw Jiyu Waning, who was dressed up. After the two of them went forward to bow, Ju Ying teased, "I didn't expect you to look even more radiant after a month of birth confinement. I must have put on weight. I feel that these clothes are a little tight." Jiyu Waning pinched her face, which had obviously gained weight. "You're not fat. You were too thin before. But after the confinement period, move more, eat less portions, but more meals. You'll lose the weight soon." Ju Ying looked at her and asked, "Where's the eldest prince? Is he awake?" "Yeah, where's my little nephew? I haven't even met him yet." Jiyu Chenglin echoed. "He's awake. The little guy is full of energy." Jiyu Waning smiled and brought them to a small cubicle. Seeing them come in, the two nannies immediately retreated to the side. Only then did Ju Ying and Jiyu Chenglin step forward to take a look. The first prince was staring out the window. His serious expression made it seem as if he could really see something. Jiyu Chenglin stepped forward and shook his little hand. "Baby, I'm your uncle. You have to remember me. It'll take you to dig for bird eggs in 2 years. How old are you now? Do you still want to dig a bird's nest? You should study hard." Jiyu Waning huffed. "But you can't just study, right? Besides, boys have to be naughty. Otherwise, it'll be a waste when they grow up." Jiyu Chenglin replied. "Indeed, boys should be naughty." At this moment, the emperor quipped in as he entered with the eldest princess. "Greetings, Emperor." Everyone immediately bowed. "Get up." After the emperor finished speaking, he said a few words of courtesy. He pulled the eldest princess forward and said, "This is your younger brother. In 2 years, Nan Nan, you can come and play with him." Indeed, I also didn't expect that she would be able to play with the eldest princess. Jiyu Waning added. "That's because you haven't seen her before. It's fun when sister-in-law is with Guogua. Not only will sister-in-law play with Guogua, but she will also snatch Guoguo's things. However, the mother and daughter are happy every day." Jiyu Chenglin said. "Chenglin, I heard you talking badly about me." Ju Ying turned her head and said. "Bad, bad." The eldest princess echoed. "I didn't say anything bad about you, sister-in-law. I was just praising you for knowing how to take care of children." Jiyu Chenglin replied with a sheepish smile. "Silly boy, she's just teasing you." Jiyu Waning smiled. "I didn't expect sister-in-law to play with children so patiently." She looked at Ju Ying and said. "Actually, it's very relaxing to play with children. They're as pure as white paper, without a trace of bad intentions." Ju Ying smiled. She put the eldest princess down. The moment the eldest princess came down, she immediately took the self-made windmill and ran to the emperor's side. "Nanan's gift to you." The emperor took it and smiled. "Really? Thank you, Nan Nan. Are you going to play with Auntie Ju here or go outside to look for Granny? The eldest princess looked at Ju Ying with a conflicted expression, but in the end, she still decided to look for the previous Empress Dowager. You guys continue chatting, I'll go to the front now. After saying that, the emperor brought the eldest princess out. Chapter 800 Heartache. When the nanny saw this, she immediately took the building blocks and the pinwheel and followed them. Jiyu Chenglin felt a little uncomfortable when he saw the room full of women, so he also went outside. Ju Ying then sat down and asked about Jiyu Waning's physical condition. At the same time, she told her that Mr. Jiyu and second aunt Jiyu had asked her to bring her gifts. Why didn't they come in? Jiyu Waning asked in surprise. They have no official position and can't come uninvited. It won't be easy for them to come in. It was my negligence. I should have arranged it in advance. You don't have to blame yourself. It's good that they didn't come. Otherwise, even if they came in, they wouldn't feel comfortable. Sister-in-law, did you have any scars on your stomach after giving birth? Jiyu Waning asked softly. I have a lot on me. I'm afraid the emperor will dislike me if he sees me. You're talking about stretch marks, right? Have you asked the imperial physician? I asked, but they just gave me ointment. They said it would take 1 or 2 years to disappear. That's why I wanted to ask if Brother Jiyu has any medicine that can quickly get rid of it. We don't have that, but I can teach you a few stretching exercises to help you recover quickly. Really? Hurry up and teach me, please. Let's go inside. After Ju Ying finished speaking, she followed her into the bedroom and taught her a few movements for postnatal recovery. After confirming that she had learned it, Ju Ying said, take these movements slowly. You can increase the time spent bit by bit. If you keep practicing like this, your stretch marks will disappear in less than 2 months. But you have to persevere. Even if your stretch marks disappear, you should continue to practice this. It can make your stomach more tense and elastic, which is also good for maintaining your figure. I'll remember it. The two of them went out and saw Mingyu sitting in the room, drinking tea. When she saw them coming out, she smiled. What are you two chatting behind my back? You two were hidden in the bedroom. Of course not. Sister-in-law just taught me how to regain my figure. By the way, where's Zhuang? Why didn't you bring him along? Jiyu Waning asked. I have. He's playing outside with his father. He doesn't want to come in. Brother Ju is back. No wonder you look so tired. Ju Ying teased. Mingyu was stunned for a moment and blushed. That's not true. Don't talk nonsense. Jiyu Waning and Ju Ying laughed when they saw her trying to cover up. All right, how dare you two mock me? Mingyu put down the cup after saying that and went forward to catch them, but she did not catch any of them. You guys continue chatting. I'm going outside to look, said Jiyu Waning, who had run to the door. After saying that, she tidied up her appearance and carried the first prince out with her 2 nannies. You're not in a good mood today? Ju Ying asked as she sat beside Mingyu. When I came in just now, I heard those people outside urging the previous Empress Dowager to arrange a consort selection for the emperor. Moreover, a few of them have their eyes on the empress position. I'm afraid Waning won't have a good life in the future, Mingyu whispered. This is destined. It's impossible for the emperor to have only one woman. I know. It's just that my heart aches for her. Everyone has their own lives. Well, just help her more in the future. That's the only way. By the way, Ju Huiming asked me to let you know when I see you. He's going to give you the accounts tomorrow, so remember not to go out. He's here to give me money. It's a good thing. Come together as a family of 3 tomorrow. How about we have a hot pot? Chapter 801 Repairing the pinwheel. Then it's a deal. Also, make some butterfly pastries for me. I love them. All right, I prepared £2 for you. Ju Ying replied. Then, she stood up. Let's go. Aren't you worried about Waning? Let's go out and support her. Let's go. We can't let them bully her. After Mingyu finished speaking, she walked out first. Ju Ying smiled and followed. They realized the emperor had prepared a lavish party when they arrived outside. Not only were the relatives of the imperial family here, but even the civil and military officials had also arrived. In short, it was very lively outside. Everyone was surrounding Jiyu Wanning and the first prince and presenting their gifts. "Auntie." The eldest princess waved at Ju Ying. "Nan, were you a good girl?" Ju Ying walked over and asked. "I good." Mill broke down. After the eldest princess finished speaking, she took out the pinwheel and handed it to her. Ju didn't know how she played with it, but the core of the straws in the middle of the paper was broken, so the pinwheel couldn't turn. Ju Ying asked the nanny to bring the rest of the stalks over. She repaired them and blew hard. After ensuring the pinwheel could move, she returned them to her. "It's done. Imperial grandmother, I want it too." At this moment, a little boy spoke. "Mother, I want it too," another child shouted. "Me too. Me too, no, bad." The eldest princess hid the pinwheel behind the previous Empress Dowager and looked at the children nearby fiercely. "Ha, our little princess is scared." The previous Empress Dowager smiled and then looked at Ju Ying. "Ying, is this pinwheel easy to make? If it's easy to make, I will get someone to help you make one for each child." "It's easy. I just don't know if it's easy to find the stalks of straws in the palace," Ju Ying said. The previous Empress Dowager looked at the eldest Princess Nanny because she had found this thing. "I will go get it now." After Nanny finished speaking, she turned around and walked away. Seeing this, Ju Ying looked for Nanny Yu and asked her to find some paper and paint. When the nanny came over with the stalks, they got busy. As soon as they started, the women with children surrounded them and began to learn. After all, it was obvious that this thing was easy to break. If they broke it, they would be embarrassed to come begging for a pinwheel. Fortunately, the pinwheel was easy to make. As long as one had a brain, they would basically understand it after Ju Ying finished it. Seeing this, all of them also helped out. "Ju Ying, your husband's appointment as Marquis is such a big deal. Aren't you going to treat us?" Mrs. Sun asked. "Yeah, it's been almost a month." "Are you really not going to hold a party?" Consort An echoed. "No, my daughter is still young, and Chung Rui is busy with the construction of the medical center. He doesn't have the energy to do it. How about this, when the year-end wine matures, I will give each family 2 jars of wine to thank everyone for their blessings. Well, remember that. You can't go back on your word when the time comes." Consort Xian smiled. "No problem. You can ask me for it if you don't get it by then. How much wine can you brew?" The previous Empress Dowager asked curiously. The others perked up their ears when they heard that. After all, red wine was not as strong as white wine. It had a hint of sweetness and was very popular among women. "Let me put it this way. 1 acre of land can produce about 300 pounds of wine. I grow 350 acres of grapes. Oh my God, there's so much. I'll make it clear first. When the time comes, you'll leave me 200 pounds. Mingyu immediately went forward when she heard that. Yes, we'll also order 100 pounds. We'll give you 300 pounds. Chapter 802 Support. Seeing this, Ju Ying had no choice but to find a piece of paper for them to write their order themselves. If she could sell to all of them, it would save her the trouble of finding vendors. After jotting down everyone's order, Ju Ying put away the paper and said, "Thank you for your support. When the wine is ready, I'll send someone to send a letter to everyone." Wah! As soon as she finished speaking, the first prince burst into tears. "Sister Ju, is the first prince crying because you stole his limelight?" Mingyu turned her head and teased. "He's probably sleepy." Jiyu Wanning smiled. "I don't know if he's sleepy or not, but I indeed borrowed our big baby's limelight today. As his aunt, I'll give him a big red packet during the new year." Ju Ying smiled. "How much?" "I know you don't lack money," Mingyu said. Ju Ying turned her head and glanced at Mingyu. She was stunned when she saw her blinking at her. "How about 10,000 taels of silver? I'll give that to him every year in the future. He'll have pocket money every year." Sister-in-law, there's no need, Jiyu Warning was about to speak. It's not like she's giving it to you, Mingyu said. Just keep it for the child. Thank you, sister-in-law. Jiyu Warning saw Ju Ying nod at her. I'll thank sister-in-law on his behalf. Who asked me to be his aunt? I can't call him my nephew for nothing. Ju Ying said. Mrs. Jiyu is sure generous. Congratulations to the first prince. He will definitely be the richest child in the future. Consort and smiled. The others quickly echoed. Even the Empress Dowager smiled happily. However, the first prince was really sleepy. Jiyu Warning said a few polite words before bringing him back to her room. Other than the royal family members, the others immediately formed groups of 3 to 5 and started chatting. Why did you do that just now? Ju Ying asked Mingyu in confusion. Did you want me to show off my wealth? Sure, listen. Mingyu turned her head and nodded over. Ju Ying glanced over. It was the family members of the officials. Thinking of what she had said earlier, she used her divine sense to look over. Some said she was generous, some said she was stupid, and some were jealous of her. However, there were a few people who were discussing Warning. They said that with the Jiyu couple's support and the first prince's birth, the empress position might be hers. Only then did Ju Ying realize that Mingyu wanted her to back Jiyu Warning up so everyone would be wary of her. Thinking about it, it made sense. Chenglin was still young. Without the help of the couple, her life would be difficult once newcomers entered the palace. After the 1-month-old banquet in the afternoon, Jiyu Warning went to find Ju Ying. Sister-in-law, I was in a hurry earlier. You don't have to give my son so much money every year. I won't take it either. You have to. Ju Ying briefly explained Mingyu's intention and what she had heard. It's only a matter of time before a consort selection is held. You can't survive in the palace without money. In the future, I'll give you 20,000 silver every year. If it's not enough, send someone to send a letter. Is there really going to be a consort selection? Jiyu Warning's face darkened immediately. If the Empress was here, maybe not. Remember my words from before, work hard on the Emperor. Remember, you can defend yourself, but don't take the initiative to harm others. If you have anything to say, you can tell the Emperor. He is a reasonable person and will not watch you be bullied. Also, be mindful about the previous Empress Dowager and the eldest princess, especially the eldest princess. Get closer to her and care about her. It will only be good for you. Don't worry, the Empress saved the Emperor. Even for her sake, I won't ignore the eldest princess. Yup, the previous Empress will be a future hurdle in the Emperor's heart, or perhaps a taboo. Try your best to respect her, and don't touch on this subject. Chapter 803 Farewell. She agreed with this point very much. A living person could never win against a dead person. Moreover, the previous empress had died to save the emperor. As long as the emperor was not heartless, he would remember it for the rest of his life. After the two of them chatted for a while, Ju Ying left her a small amount of silver, 1,000 taels in total, and left the palace. When she returned to the residence and found out that Mr. Jiyu was still around, she instructed the kitchen to add stewed pork ribs and steam a big yellow croaker for dinner before returning to her house. Guogua, who was pushing the baby walker, saw her enter. She immediately threw the baby walker aside and turned around. She stretched out her arm and shouted with an aggrieved expression. Mom, hug. Oh, who bullied our Guogua? Ju Ying smiled and picked up the little troublemaker. Don't think that she didn't know that when she wasn't at home, Guogua had eaten her fill, played well, and showed no signs of missing her. Guogua. Guogua raised her head. You want to eat apples? Ju Ying was stunned for a moment. I will get you some. Mistress, this servant prepared it for her, but she spat it out after eating a mouthful. Mrs. Lin pointed at the half-small bowl of apples that had been cut into small pieces. Ju Ying knew that she wanted to eat the soft snake fruit. She said to Mrs. Lin, You go down and rest for a while. I'll feed her. Yes, mistress. Mrs. Lin responded and walked out. After she left, Ju Ying took out a big red snake fruit. Guoguo's eyes lit up immediately. Ju Ying carried the bowl and brought the fruit knife into the bedroom. She first ate all the fruits in the bowl, then cut half a snake fruit for Guoguo. After eating, Guoguo went to sleep. Ju Ying was also tired, so she also took a nap. At night, because of his identity, Mr. Jiyu had dinner alone. After dinner, he came over and said, "Ying, I heard that Cheng Rui has been conferred the title of Marquis and Le, right?" "Yes, the Emperor conferred the title last month because of the smallpox incident. When you're free, return to the village and let your uncle record it in the family tree." "All right, but I'm afraid he'll have to wait until next year. Cheng Rui is out of the capital this time to set up medical centers in various places. He won't be back for a while. You can come back whenever you want. I will leave early tomorrow morning, so I won't be greeting you. It's not easy for you to come here. Why don't you stay for 2 more days? I have to make 2 more shipping trips before the new year. Otherwise, I won't be able to do anything once the river freezes. All right, take care of yourself. I will get the kitchen to prepare some food for you in a while." "That's fine. There's no need for much. Just 2 meals will do." Mr. Jiyu turned around and left after saying that. Ju Ying went to the kitchen and asked Chuanxiang to make some sesame seed cakes for them. She stewed a pot of pork and put a few eggs in it. After she was done, she put it into a small jar. Then, she put the sesame seed cake into a basket. At the same time, she also put some pears and apples into the basket and asked Niu Fugue to send them over. She also instructed Niu Fugue to send a carriage to the dock tomorrow. After that, besides caring for her child, she would go to the restaurant for a walk. Her days were quite leisurely. The Emperor's days, on the other hand, were not good. Every day, he was forced by the ministers to hold a consort selection for a new empress. One day, the Emperor got really impatient. He stood up and said, "Are you going to marry a wife, or am I going to marry a wife? Don't forget that the Empress died for me. She hasn't even been dead for 100 days, and do you want me to stop mourning for her? Your Majesty." When Grand Scholar Sun heard this, he immediately cried and knelt on the ground. The Emperor's eyes reddened, and he immediately went forward to help him up. "Father-in-law, please get up quickly. I've let you down. It's all my fault." Chapter 804A Plan Emperor, don't say that. It's her honor to die because she saved you. It's just that, when Grand Scholar Sun finished speaking, he directly burst into tears in the hall. There was heartache and regret for his daughter, as well as gratitude for the Emperor. To be honest, their daughter was gone, and even if the Emperor got a new empress the next day, they couldn't say anything. He didn't expect the Emperor to have thoughts of mourning for his daughter. When the ministers saw this, they immediately shut their mouths. At the same time, after understanding the Emperor's thoughts, they temporarily stopped their thoughts of pressuring the Emperor. After the court session, the Emperor brought Grand Scholar Sun to the royal study. "Father-in-law, I invite you over as a son-in-law to discuss the eldest princess matter. Please speak." Grand Scholar Sun was stunned for a moment and nodded. The eldest princess is still young and cannot do without her mother's guidance. However, Imperial Grandmother is getting on in years, and I don't know how many more years she can look after her. Therefore, I wanted to put her under Waning's wings. First, Waning and the Empress have always had a good relationship. Second, Waning doesn't have any bad intentions, and Jiyu Chengrue and his wife don't have any ambitions. Your Majesty intends to make consort Xian the Empress. Grand Scholar Sun was stunned for a moment. Otherwise, the eldest princess should be under the new empress. The Emperor nodded. Other than the above reasons, there is also the consideration of the first prince. My father and I have already suffered once as the eldest son born out of consorts. We don't want to see our children and grandchildren suffer again. The Grand Scholar Sun raised his head and looked at him in surprise, and he agreed in his heart. No matter what family the eldest son of a concubine was in, he would be disliked by the mistress. Moreover, in a royal family that inherited the throne. Presumably, this was also one of the reasons why King Hui and the others struck first. Although Jiyu Waning's personality was a little meek, it did not mean that the future empress would be able to tolerate them, mother and son, so. The most important point was that Jiyu Waning's side of the family was weak. Jiyu Chungrue, who was the only one who had some potential, did not like the scheming in the royal court. However, with his own strength, coupled with his relationship with the emperor and Zhu Huiming, he could still protect Jiyu Waning. "I'll listen to you. As long as the eldest princess lives happily, that's fine. Yes, she will still follow the Grand Empress Dowager for the time being. When the first prince is older and can take care of himself, she will be brought back. This minister thanks the emperor on behalf of the eldest princess. You're too polite. She's also my daughter, my first child, and my eldest daughter. I definitely won't mistreat her." The Grand Scholar's son nodded and didn't say anything else. "Don't tell anyone about the matter of the Empress title for the time being. We'll talk about it after Miaoki's anniversary next year." "I understand. If you have no other instructions, I will take my leave." "Sure. If you want to see the eldest princess, you can come over anytime." The emperor nodded. "Yes." The Grand Scholar's son responded and retreated. Raising his head to look at the blue sky, his heart also brightened up. As long as the emperor remembered the eldest princess and was willing to plan her future well, everything was fine. He returned home in a good mood. Mrs. Sun saw that he finally had a smile on his face and asked curiously, "Dear, what good thing happened? You actually smiled." After Grand Scholar Sun heard this, he told her about the emperor's plan to mourn for Sun Miaoka for a year. "Although our daughter is gone, it's great that the emperor still respects her." Of course, he did not mention anything about the eldest princess or the new empress title conferment. Chapter 805 Murder Attempt. "I'd rather have my daughter alive," Mrs. Sun cried immediately. "At this point, what's the use of saying those things? Remember, in the future, if anyone mentions the matter of selecting a consort, we won't participate and will only listen to the emperor." "All right," Mrs. Sun said as she wiped her tears. When Grand Scholar Sun saw this, his eyes turned red. The two of them sat and cried for a while before starting to eat. Of course, the adults of the various families also mentioned it to their wives and daughters when they returned home, asking them to stop thinking about the consort selection temporarily. After Zhu Ying finished her work that night, she brought Guogua out of the interspace. Suddenly, she felt her heart palpitate. Guogua woke up and started crying. Zhu Ying quickly hugged her and coaxed her. She couldn't fall asleep after that. Thinking of that palpitation just now, she felt uneasy. Then, she carried Guogua into her interspace and placed her on the bed in the villa. She began to investigate Jiyu Chengrue's whereabouts. In the end, she finally found Jiyu Chungrue at the residence of the magistrate of Pingyang Prefecture, Magistrate Sun's residence, which was also the home of Magistrate Sun of Yunhe County. He was obviously drunk and couldn't sleep well. A person dressed as a maid held a knife in her hand and was about to stab Jiyu Chengrue's heart. Zhu Ying was startled. She immediately turned her spiritual senses into a knife and slashed at the back of the servant girl's head. After she fell, Zhu Ying immediately stabbed Jiyu Chengrue's philtrum. When he woke up from the pain, he was still in a daze. Still sleeping? Zhu Ying had no choice but to send a voice transmission. "You're going to lose your life soon. Babe." Jiyu Chungrue was stunned for a moment. "Woke up. Someone wanted to kill you." It was the servant girl on the ground. "I whacked her on the back of the head and knocked her out. You can investigate the rest yourself." When Jiyu Chungrue heard that, he was completely awake. He nodded. "Leave the rest to me. You take care of yourself. You too, drink less." Zhu Ying left after she finished speaking. Jiyu Chungrue immediately got up and called Lin Yitian and the others. After informing Lord Sun, he began to interrogate the servant girl. The servant girl woke up and looked at him and Lord Sunday dog officials protecting each other. "As expected, you all are not good people. Really? If you can't give me a reason, don't blame me for killing you for disrespect." Lord Sun sneered. Although he wasn't a good person, He tried his best to be honest and upright when it came to being an official. He had never done anything that would make him lose his conscience. He didn't expect to be scolded by someone today. It was really preposterous. For this time's medical examination, Master Song, who was originally in second place, didn't get selected, but Mrs. Sun's cousin, Chu Jianwen, who was in fourth place in the first round, got selected. "Isn't it because of you officials?" the servant girl said indignantly. "Master Song, Song Baoshan? Tell me what your relationship with him is first." Lord Sun asked. "No, it's nothing. I just feel that you guys are unfair, so, are you trying to fool an idiot? You're a servant girl at my residence, yet you're siding with an outsider and even helping a man. Who would believe that you two don't have a special relationship?" The servant girl didn't know how to explain. She couldn't say that she was sent here as a spy. Beat her up. I wonder who dares send a spy to the magistrate's office. I want to see who is that bold. When Lord Sun finished speaking, a servant immediately went forward and pressed the servant girl onto the chair to interrogate her. Chapter 806. It's serious. The servant girl cried out in pain. She was slapped again and again. It was so painful that she did not even have the chance to scream. It also woke Mrs. Sun up. She walked out to see the scene and asked the servant standing at the side to understand the situation. After understanding what was happening, she felt a lingering fear in his heart. If Marquis and Le died in their residence, then her husband's life would probably be in danger. She immediately got her personal maidservant to call the servant girls, who lived with the murderer, over. Afterward, she stood silently at the side and watched the servant girl get beaten up. After the beating, the servant girl was already in so much pain that she broke out in a cold sweat. Her small face was pale, and there was even blood at the corner of her mouth. "I'll give you one more chance. Tell me, or I'll turn you into a military prostitute," Lord Sun said. The servant girl shivered after hearing this. Military prostitutes? She had heard it from others when she was traveling. No one who went in could live for more than half a year. Lord Sun saw that she was afraid and added, "Your 3 closest relation of kins will also be exiled." I will speak." The servant girl shook her head and replied weakly. Lord Sun didn't say anything after hearing that. Instead, he raised his hand and asked someone to take her down from the stool and put her on the ground. "It's Mrs. Song. I am Mrs. Song's subordinate. She sent me here to spy on the important matters in the residence for her and then instructed me to try my best to become your concubine. You're just a servant. You're not worthy." Mrs. Sun replied unhappily. At the same time, she held a grudge against Mrs. Song. What did she mean by sending a servant girl to be her husband's consort? Was she belittling her? Lord Sun's expression was obviously not good, but this reason was still not enough for her to attempt to murder a marquis. Thinking of this, he asked, "If that's the case, you should be threatening Marquis and Le. Why would you want to kill him? If you kill him, do you think your Master Song can enter the medical center?" "I am not sure either." "Madam, no, Mrs. Song arranged it this way." When the servant girl said this, she also felt that something was wrong. However, at this point, it was too late to say anything. The medical center doesn't only select medical skills but also medical ethics and character. These two are the most important. Do you think he'll take in a murderer who would fake carrots as ginseng? I had originally planned to teach him a lesson after the medical center was established. Now it seems that there's no need to wait. Chapter 807. Exposing I. Dr. Song hesitated. "You should ask her servant girl, Su Jin. She knows more details than me. I've already given you a chance. I hope you're telling the truth." After the judge finished speaking, he ordered someone to bring the servant girl, Su Jin, over and asked, "Has your madam seen anyone recently?" "I'm not sure." Su Jin raised her head and replied. The judge did not answer her but turned to look sharply at Dr. Song. Since he recommended this person, let them fight it out. As expected, Dr. Song received the judge's knife-like gaze, and his heart trembled violently. He looked at Su Jin and scolded, "How could you not know? You even listened to us sleep together. What secrets do you not know? You! Shameless!" Su Jin's face turned red after hearing this. "I don't know about anything you did. Although I don't know who you met, it was definitely during the 2 days you stayed in the manor. Don't even think about pretending to be stupid, and don't even think about implicating me and my sons. Nonsense. We only stayed at the manor for 2 days. Who did we meet?" Su Jin raised her head and angrily looked at Dr. Song. "Someone, bring me a few pieces of paper and a bucket of water." Jiyu Chungrue saw that they weren't cooperating and could not be bothered to waste time with them. "Yes." The prison guard responded and went out to bring a few pieces of paper and half a bucket of water. However, it was a kind of inferior paper. Jiyu Chungrue did not mind. He took the paper and pointed at Dr. Song. The prison guard called for 2 people to come up. He first tied the 2 of them up and then pressed them firmly to the ground. What are you doing?" Dr. Song asked in horror. "I'll let you have a taste of a new interrogation method that I've discovered. It's very fun, very energy-saving, and not bloody." After Jiyu Chungrue finished speaking, he immediately pasted the piece of paper on Dr. Song's face. Then, he scooped half a ladle of water and slowly poured it on the paper. A moment later, the paper was stuck tightly to Dr. Song's face. Dr. Song's breathing became heavier. Jiyu Chungrue then pasted another one. This time, Dr. Song's breathing panted, his face turned pale, and he kept struggling. "Your body is weak. Why, can't take it after just 2 pieces of paper?" After Jiyu Chungrue finished speaking, he waited for Dr. Song's breathing to have a rhythm before he pasted another. This time, Dr. Song's eyes were bloodshot, and his eyes were wide open. His face quickly started distorting. He was trying to find a chance to catch his breath. However, Jiyu Chengrue's papers overlap with each other and have already blocked all the gaps, making him unable to find a breath. When Dr. Song began to kick his legs with all his might, he went forward and stuck another piece of paper. This time, Dr. Song struggled even harder. By the time the 5th paper was pasted, Dr. Song was no longer struggling but was whimpering before his death. "Interesting. This is crueler than the tiger stool and chilly water. Suffocation." The judge's eyes lit up. Some felons and wanted criminals were really stubborn. Many of them would not speak well, even if they were beaten to death. Perhaps this would be a breakthrough. Soon, Dr. Song stopped moving. "My lord, is he dead?" the judge asked. "No, he hasn't." After Jiyu Chungrue finished speaking, he pulled the paper off his face. Soon, Dr. Song's coughing was heard, followed by heavy breathing. The judge finally heaved a sigh of relief. "Dr. Song, this is your last chance. Otherwise, I'll use you to try and see if a few pieces of paper can suffocate someone to death." Chapter 808 The Nameless Don't. Wait. I know that Su Jin has a lover who is the manager of a medicine shop on Tongda Street. Dr. Song shouted. That suffocating feeling tortured him so much that his 3 souls and 7 spirits were about to leave his body. He really did not want to try that again. Su Jin looked at Dr. Song with hatred, but she didn't say anything. When Jiyu Chungrue saw this, he looked at her thoughtfully. It seemed that her lover was quite important to her. The key was that she was even more composed than Dr. Song. It made him feel like she was the master and Dr. Song was the servant. This made him recall that spy organization from the Marquis of Dingan residence. It looks like there was a fish that slipped through the net. At the same time, the alarm in his heart sounded. It seemed that King Hui wanted his life. Catch him. The judge turned around and said. Immediately, a soldier ran out. An hour later, the soldier brought back a man covered in wounds. Sir, the manager of the medicine shop somehow found out that the Song residence was raided. When we arrived, he was on the run. A fight broke out between us. Just as we were about to capture them alive, he took poison and committed suicide. We could only bring back his assistant and the bag he packed. After one of the officers finished speaking, he handed a bag to the judge. After the judge took the bag, he looked at the prison guard and said, "Let's interrogate him properly." Then, he looked at the soldiers and said, "You can return and treat your injuries. You can just pass on the medical fees to the medical center. Oh right, remember to inform a team of soldiers to come here, too." Yes. The soldiers left after saying that. The judge was not in a hurry to interrogate the shop assistant. Instead, he opened the bag and carefully rummaged through it. Other than clothes, there were only more than 10,000 taels of silver in it. There was nothing else. If he hadn't committed suicide, they would have suspected that they were overthinking. "Do you have anything to say?" The judge stood up and looked at the shop assistant. I don't know anything." The shop assistant looked at them with a face full of fear, and even his body began to tremble. "I'll ask you again. Is there anything you want to say? Or do you want to try all the torture tools here?" The judge asked sternly. After saying that, he pointed at the torture device behind him. The young man turned his head and saw the blood-stained frame, the whip, and the hot branding iron in the fire. His legs went weak, and he peed his pants. I really don't know," he said hurriedly. But I saw him hide a booklet in a square table in the main room." When Su Jin heard it, she wanted to kill the shop assistant. However, she was stopped by the prison guard. "How did he hide it?" "I only realized today that the top of the square table comprises 2 layers. If I hadn't seen him open it, I wouldn't have noticed." After hearing this, the judge handed the bag to the magistrate and personally led his men to the medicine shop. When he entered, he was about to see a person dressed in government office attire taking out a booklet. He immediately led his men and pounced on him. "Hold him down. Check if he has poison in his teeth." Sure enough, he found a poison sac in that person's mouth. The judge immediately went forward and took the booklet. There was a list of about 10 people on it, and he was shocked to find there were 2 in his residence alone. He looked at the bailiff, who was detained. "Very good. You guys are really bold. You even have spies in my residence." After saying that, he first ordered his men to arrest the people on the list and return to the prison to begin a new wave of interrogation. "Otherwise, the 2 of you will not be able to hold on for long." Lin Etienne hesitated for a moment. "The people from the bodyguard agency aren't safe. I'll go to Hongyun restaurant tomorrow to get 2 people from them." "All right, use them if you think it's convenient. Go to bed early. We have to set off again tomorrow." After Jiyu Chungrue finished speaking, he entered the inner room. In the dead of the night, Jiyu Chungrue called Ju Ying through the Mother God statue. After Ju Ying received the call, she immediately came over. She sent him a voice transmission when she saw Lin Etienne outside the room. "Put a fake of you sleeping in bed. I'll pick you up, and let's talk in the interspace." Jiyu Chungrue quietly got up and stuffed his thick clothes under the blanket. He faked a human sleeping in his bed, put on his shoes, and stood ready. As soon as he stood up straight, Ju Ying brought him in. Jiyu Chungrue pulled her into his arms. "Last night was too close. If you hadn't found me in time, I would be a corpse now. Let's see if you still dare to drink so much in the future. It's also because I haven't seen Lord Sun for a long time, so I drank a few more cups. In the future, as long as I'm outside, I definitely won't do it again. Just remember that, alright?" "Oh, right, who is that servant girl? Why did she want to kill you?" Chapter 8-10 Husband and wife meet. You didn't look at me today. It makes me so sad." Jiyu Chungrue lamented with an aggrieved expression. Ju Ying pushed him away and said, "Oh, come on. Without you around, do you think there's no need to deal with the internal and external matters at home? If I'm free, I have to bring Guogua with me. I don't dare enter the interspace in the daytime. Besides, the servant was caught. With the cooperation of Lord Sun and the others, If you still can't deal with a little servant girl, then the two of you can forget about being officials. Jiyu Chungrui immediately apologized when he heard that. Sorry, babe. I was the one who judged a gentleman like you with my petty heart. Just hurry up and tell me what happened. Is there still danger? I'm afraid so. After Jiyu Chungrui finished speaking, he told her about catching the spy and discovering Master Liu. Is he a cockroach? He's dead, but not dead. His people are everywhere. Indeed. I don't know how many more people there are. That's why I want you to keep an eye on that Master Liu. Perhaps you can find out all the remnants of King Hui through his killing intent toward me. If they grow any stronger, they will really become a scourge to society. All right, bring more people with you. If he gets anxious and cornered, it will be troublesome if he wants to kill you no matter the cost. Yup, this time I will bring a crossbow over. Remember to give me a few more arrows. Oh right, there's also the medicine and the antidote for the knockout powder. You have to give me some of that, too. Alright, I'll prepare those now, in case I forget later. Thanks, I'll take a look at Guogua and take a shower. Jiyu Chungrui nodded and walked toward the villa. Ju Ying, on the other hand, started preparing. She prepared not only what he requested but also a bottle of pepper spray, a pack of tear powder, and a small bottle containing more than 10 pieces of 100-year-old ginseng. Jiyu Chungrui visited Guogua, who was still giggling in her sleep. He smiled and kissed her gently on the forehead before taking his shower. After Ju Ying was done packing, she came out with a small bag. Jiyu Chungrui hugged Ju Ying and kissed her fiercely. I'll leave the house to you. Remember to say goodnight to me before you go to bed every day. Otherwise, I'll think that you've forgotten about me. Fine, remember to bring more people with you. Otherwise, if anything happens, I won't be your widow. Don't worry. You won't have the chance to remarry in this life, the next life, or the next life after that. Oh, you. Ju Ying rolled her eyes at him and moved him out of her interspace. Surprised, Jiyu Chungrui returned to the pitch-black room and gritted his teeth. My position is getting more and more unstable. It seems I must prop up my husband's dignity when I return properly. Then, he smiled and shook his head at their silliness. He shook his head and threw away the messy thoughts in his mind, keeping the bag in his bed, and went to sleep. On the other end, after Ju Ying sent Jiyu Chungrui off, she began to look for Master Liu. She had not expected to find him so quickly at a residence in Pingyang Prefecture. She would have doubted herself if she had not seen the silver butterfly mask. At the same time, she remembered his face. She had thought he would be a handsome man who wore a mask to avoid trouble, but all he had was an ordinary face with a burn on the left side. Perhaps it was because the treatment was not done in time, so it left behind a black scar. She sized up the people in his courtyard. There were not many, there were only a total of 11 people, including him. They had quite a lot of money on them. Each of them carried a few hundred taels worth of silver notes. Lord Liu had more, at least 10,000 taels of silver. Chapter 8:11 Lion Camel Ridge 1. Ju Ying did not hesitate to drug them and take all their silver. She wanted to see if there were any other accomplices in Pingyang Prefecture or if they would pillage or steal. She could deal with them openly if they dared to do that. After breakfast the next day, Ju Ying handed Guogua over to Mrs. Lin to look after while she went to the study room and entered her interspace with the excuse of checking the accounts. Through her mother god temples, she quickly found Master Liu and the others. At this time, the group had already set off as bodyguards. However, because the mask was too obvious, Master Liu had obviously put on a hat. Ju Ying took a look at their goods. A few fur mats were on top, but there were just stones on the bottom. What shoddy disguises! When they arrived at a small town, the group of people only realized that they had lost all their money after a meal. Through wrangling, they had no choice but to give the shopkeeper a fox fur and exchange it for a certain amount of dry rations. Did you hear anything last night? Master Liu asked after they left the town. No, I slept very soundly last night. One of them replied. The others echoed the same. After Master Liu heard this, he remembered that he had slept quite soundly. He chuckled. "We've been hunting geese all day and finally got pecked in the eye by one." "You mean we were robbed?" a subordinate asked in disbelief. While they weren't on alert 24/7, they were definitely light sleepers. No one realized that their money had been stolen. If they were to kill them, it was terrifying just thinking about it. Could it be someone from the government? Someone asked uneasily. "Stupid, if it were the government, they would have arrested us long ago." Another subordinate replied. "Master, what should we do now?" Another asked. "When we reach the next county, sell all the furs and then go to the Lion-Camel Ridge of Chen Province to set up an ambush. Be alert along the way and see if anyone is following us. If there is, try to catch them alive." "Yes." Everyone responded and set off. However, this time, they were much more on alert. The 10 people surrounded the carriage, with the goods on the carriage as the center. At the same time, they were intently scanning the people coming and going. After Ju Ying knew their plan, she told Jiyu Chungrui about it and went to get busy. At night, Ju Ying was done with her work. Jiyu Chungrui was still awake. She brought him back to her interspace and asked, "What kind of place is Lion-Camel Ridge? Are there bandits there?" "Yes, I found a map today and asked the bodyguard agency." Lion-Camel Ridge is the only road from the north to Chen Province, so there are many bandit nests now after the snow disaster. However, as long as the travelers paid the toll, they wouldn't be robbed. Of course, there are many accidents, so they want to get rid of you for being a bandit. That's right. This way, it'll be challenging to find them. Got it. When will you arrive? It'll be your eye in the sky then. I plan to visit Chengxi tomorrow, so it will be about 3 days before we reach Lion-Camel Ridge. How about this? I'll let you know the day before we cross the Lion-Camel Ridge. Jiyu Chungrui continued, "I want to contact the nearby garrison and get rid of these bandits. Otherwise, it will be troublesome if Master Liu uses them. They might be using those bandits. As long as they get to kill you, those bandits will have no choice but to go against the imperial court." "Yes, this is my concern, so we can't let those bandits live either way." Jiyu Chungrui nodded in agreement. Chapter 8:12 Lion-Camel Ridge, 2. Over the next 2 days, Ju Ying would monitor Master Liu and the others occasionally and pay attention to their whereabouts. Unexpectedly, they did not stop on the way. They arrived at Lion-Camel Ridge the next afternoon and found a small stronghold. After settling down, he sent his underlings to keep an eye on Jiyu Chengrui's whereabouts. Ju Ying told Jiyu Chungrui the news that night, and the two discussed it. Jiyu Chungrui decided to take the risk himself, as long as Ju Ying pointed out the trap for them. Only when they committed a crime could they be exterminated openly and force the other bandits who did not participate to surrender quickly. After Ju Ying understood his purpose, she did not persuade him anymore. Instead, she hurriedly drew a topographic map of the mountain. At the same time, he also realized that the biggest bandit on this mountain was an old bandit lair. They were really rich. The other bandits had to pay protection fees if they wanted to stay on the mountain. Just as she was thinking about that small hut and checking on Master Liu and the others' plans, a short man who was as agile as a monkey suddenly ran into the main courtyard and said, "Chief Tiger, big news. Someone wants to kill Marquis and Le." Marquis and Le, the doctor who discovered sweet potatoes and cowpox? The chief was stunned by that news. "Yes, him. I heard that he's out of the capital this time to set up medical centers in various places to prevent and cure all kinds of plagues and rectify fake medicine, including those black-hearted medicine merchants. Damn it, it wasn't easy for the country to have a good official sincere to the people. How is it that he was targeted so quickly? Do you know who wanted to kill him? I will definitely kill that brat. It's the remnants of King Hui. Monkey, are you sure?" "I'm sure. The heavens are really helping me. We finally have a chance to take revenge." Chief Tiger replied in a daze. "That's right, Chief. It's been more than 10 years. We finally have a chance to take revenge. Monkey said. Call the few leaders to the hall. We have to discuss how to deal with this. After Tiger finished speaking, he rushed to the meeting hall first. Through their conversation, Ju-Ying learned that their bandit lair was founded by 21 soldiers and officers who had escaped from the southwest. Back then, when they had learned that the Marquis of Dingan had used the soldiers' lives to put on a show of war against the Western Empire to suppress the Zhou family, they had been extremely disgusted with the Marquis. The Marquis of Dingan naturally could not tolerate any disobedience. When he wanted to kill them, these officers had received the news in advance and escaped. They had crossed the mountains and ridges all the way here to become bandits. Unfortunately, the Marquis of Dingan had only grown stronger. In addition to the fact that King Hui was ruthless and had many spies, they had never found a chance to take revenge. They had originally thought that since King Hui was already dead and the Marquis of Dingan was also gone, there would be no target for revenge. Who knew that they would still find an opportunity to take revenge in the end? Therefore, they decided that while they were on the move, they would act behind the scenes to save Jiyu Chungrui while killing Master Liu. After Ju-Ying heard their discussion and knew they were harmless, she told Jiyu Chungrui the good news. Jiyu Chungrui was shocked when he heard that. He really did not expect that his reputation was already so resounding and that so many people loved him. Investigate them. If they haven't done anything evil, then enrolling them is the safest way, he said after a moment of hesitation. Yeah, that place is high in the mountains and hidden in a dense forest. It's easy to defend and difficult to attack. I'll investigate them properly. Ju-Ying nodded and began to look for the account book in their stronghold. Chapter 8 13 Lion Camel Ridge, 3. With the account book, she would know if they had done anything bad. In the end, she found more than 10 boxes of account books in a secret room at the back of the mountain. Ju-Ying opened it and flipped through it seriously. Most of the money was collected from regular caravans and escort agencies. Of course, there were also robberies, but most of them were from heartless black merchants. This was especially true for the merchant groups that sold fake medicine. They had robbed many of them, and it was clearly stated on the list what kind of fake medicine they had stolen. Moreover, they had robbed a batch of gold, which was the gold that the original Chenju prefecture magistrate had embezzled. After they received the news, not only did they rob the gold, but they also killed him. There was also a portion of their own income, which included furs, prey, and herbs. Their annual income was similar, but the only difference was the amount. During the disaster years, their income was close to nothing. On the contrary, they spent a lot and helped many people, including the villages on the mountain. After looking at it, Ju-Ying went to Master Liu's stronghold and took a look. She roughly understood their plan after seeing their bows and arrows, animal traps, and weapons. After telling Jiyu Chungrui about this, Ju-Ying did not care anymore. Only when Jiyu Chungrui sent a message to her that they had arrived at Lion Camel Ridge did Ju-Ying find an excuse and lock herself in the study room. She quickly found Jiyu Chungrui. At this moment, they had already begun to pass through the path between the Lion Camel Ridge. Ju-Ying quickly looked around. At the corner, Master Liu and the others were hiding on the left side of the road. Each of them held a large sword in their hands. To the left and behind them were Tiger's men. They had twice as many men as Master Liu. On the right side of the road, a row of archers was hiding, staring at the middle of the road. However, each of them only had 2 arrows in their hands, presumably to force them to stop the carriage. There were also a row of animal traps along the way. As long as a horse passed, it would immediately snap its legs. Remember, don't push too hard. Ju-Ying reminded Jiyu Chungrui as she told him their layout. Got it. I'll be careful. As soon as Jiyu Chungrui finished speaking, more than 10 arrows immediately shot toward his carriage. Be careful, Lord. Lin Yitian shouted. Jiyu Chungrui immediately laid down on the carriage after hearing that. He kicked open the carriage and got out. Stop. There's traps ahead. Lin Yitian and the others were stunned for a moment. At this moment, they also noticed the new soil on the road. Then, they quickly surrounded Jiyu Chungrui. The second volley of arrows was shot, but Jiyu Chungrui and the others stopped it. However, one of the soldiers still had his leg injured. Jiyu Chungrui had found the archer's position. He immediately started to counterattack with his crossbow. Master Liu saw that their attention had been drawn over, so he quietly rushed down. However, before they could descend the mountain, Tiger and his men shouted, "Kill!" Tiger's group dispersed and rushed down from above in a disciplined manner. Shocked, Lin Etian and the others quickly turned their heads to look. However, before they could recover, Master Liu and the others had already arrived. They could only raise their sabers and welcome them. At this moment, Master Liu also sensed that Tiger and the others had come with ill intentions. He immediately ordered, "Retreat after you kill Jiyu Chungrui." With his order, the two sides instantly started fighting. Jiyu Chungrui noticed that the archers had stopped. He turned around and shot his crossbow at Master Liu. As for the archers on the mountain, they originally wanted to come down, but when they saw Tiger and the others, they immediately retreated. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.